Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ice Cold Takes podcast. I'm your host, Joey DeMeglio. The New York Rangers have concluded preseason with a dismal 1-5 record, but now the games will start to matter starting Thursday when they open their season. Joining me today is our friend, Newsday reporter Colin Stephenson. Thanks for joining me, Colin. How are you?
I'm good, Joey. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
I'm doing well. You're all around the world here this week. You're on Vince's podcast. I saw the other like last week. Maybe you're on somebody else's podcast, maybe, and now this week you're on Ice Cold Takes again.
Yeah, I did. I did Vince this week, and then last week I was on Andrew Gross's podcast, but that is an Islanders podcast, so it's I mean, I just do it because I love being on with Andrew, and but I'm not an expert on the Islanders. I can I know a little bit about what's going on, but I'm not around them every day, so that's a little different look. But yeah, no, this is my wheelhouse here, coming on with you, and just talking about what's going on with the Rangers.
Yeah, I saw you were able to provide a little bit of insight into Julian Gauthier.
No, we all love Julian Gauthier.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I liked him.
He's just I mean, I don't know that he's gonna be the guy that's an upgrade over Zach Parise for them. I think Parise scored 20 goals, and I don't know that Gauthier has 20 goals in his career. But good luck. I mean, I hope he works out and finds a niche and he can be a player for them.
Yeah, I'll tell you what though, he had a lot of great chances like to score goals in his time with the Rangers. If he finishes maybe 50% of those, 25%, I think he could get at least 10 goals. I don't know about 20, but he could get at least 10.
That's always been the thing with him. Like he's obviously he scored in junior. He played on the World Juniors, so it's not like he doesn't have talent. And he is big. He's 6'4", or 6'5", or 6'4", I guess, and he's huge and he's super fast. So I mean, he does create chances, and that's you hit it on the head right there. I mean, he just has to finish the chances he creates because if he does that, then he's a real player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so transitioning over to the Rangers, this is Laviolette coming into his first regular season as Rangers head coach. And right off the bat, like even in preseason, all of you guys, all the beat reporters were commenting about the pace of the practices, right? You commented on the speed and the pace.
Yeah.
It was moving at full speed, right? So how much different, I want to know, how much different are they than Gerard Gallant's practices?
I think they're different. I mean, training camp is a little, different coaches have different philosophies in training camp, and clearly, I think Laviolette is a different guy in terms of his philosophies than is Gallant. I mean, I like Gallant. I was fine with Gallant as well. Gallant had the player perspective. He played in the league for a long time, and I feel like he coached the players the way he would have preferred to be coached, when he was playing, which is, he left a lot of it up to the players, right? And I think, he viewed practice as outside of training camp where you have maybe a young guy that's trying to break in or an old guy that's trying to hang on, I think the guys that, everybody knows is going to be on the team. I mean, I think he just kind of viewed it as, all right, let's just get our legs moving and go over a few things and let's not take any chances on getting anybody hurt, right? So and let's save your legs for the regular season. Whereas Laviolette is one of these guys who has said it, more than once since he's been the coach. Like, he believes that you play like you practice, and so he feels like, for instance, he doesn't feel like you can turn it on. And playoff hockey is different than regular season hockey. He doesn't feel like you can play one way in the regular season and then flip a switch and play a different way in the playoffs. And similarly, I don't think he feels like you can play one way in the preseason and then flip a switch and play a different way in the regular season. And he wants guys to, work hard in practice, and give kind of almost give it everything in practice and in the preseason and stuff. And we asked him, I think, this week about injuries, and are you worried about injuries? And he said something to the effect of, no, we can't be worried about injuries. You just gotta play and do what you have to do and be ready for for the games, and you can't afford to worry about that stuff. And so that's the philosophy that he takes, which is certainly different than Gallant's philosophy, which was a little bit more laid back. Is one better than the other? That's the results will tell us that. Both of them have won a lot of games as coaches. Laviolette's won a Stanley Cup early in his career. He's been to the finals 2 other times. He's had great success. I think he's the winningest American-born coach. Yep. But yes, there is a risk when you have high intensity practices that you're gonna get injuries. And Phil Heedle's been out of practice for over a week now. I don't know what the injury is. They say it's an upper body injury. We saw him the other day in the locker room. He looked fine. They say that he's been out of practice, and it's just they can't use the word, or they wouldn't use the word precautionary or anything like that, because it wouldn't have lasted more than a week. But they seem to feel like he's going to be ready for opening day, and that's good. So it is a risk that you run when you take when you run a full speed practice, is that guys are going to get dinged up, and it's not necessarily that they get hit and suffer an injury because they get hit. It's more they're working their muscles, man, and they could pull something, you know what I mean? So it's a double-edged sword, and it's just different philosophies is all.
Seemed like a big focus on conditioning. What I noticed from like your videos, I saw a lot of the players hunched over in the first couple practices. And I know I talked to Johnny Lazarus last week, and he played before, and that's all training camps. That's what he said. Like, that's all training camps where it's you have to condition yourself to last in a game, a 60-minute contest. But like the players were hunched over, and in addition to that, they're learning a new system. What is it? The left wing lock, I think they call it.
That's what some people call it. Yeah. So I think Johnny's right in the sense that it should be a shock to the system your first day of training camp, and you're going to skate hard. I mean, because you work over the summer. You play, as these guys say, you play summer hockey, and you work on your shooting, and you work on your skills, and you're in the gym, so you're conditioned. But the first day or two of training camp, the intensity is a lot higher than even in a camp under a guy like Gallant, who's not he's not going to push you as hard as a guy like Laviolette's going to push you. It's still going to be hard the first day. It's still going to be much more intense than anything you did over the summer. So I don't think that's that's not something I necessarily look too much at, as long as it's just the first day or the first 2 days. I mean, after that, you'd assume that, guys' bodies get used to it, and they can handle it. So as far as the system is concerned, there is Laviolette is very open about, talking about his system, and he believes in his system, and it's not just defense, right? I mean, there's offensive stuff too. But that defensive, it was very noticeable when they first started working on that defensive system, that neutral zone system, that left wing lock that some people call it. It's basically a 1-3-1 trap in the neutral zone. So you have one forward, and it's usually the left wing that's kind of at the point putting pressure on the puck. The other two forwards are hanging back, and one defenseman steps up. Usually the left side defenseman steps up. So you got the left side defenseman on the left, the center in the middle, the right wing on the right boards. The right defenseman slides over to the middle, and you have a 1-3-1. And there's variations on it. It's not always the left wing that's running point. I suppose it depends on, what 3 forwards are on the ice. I suppose it depends on, which defenseman's bringing it up the ice for the other team, whether it's the left side guy or the right side guy, who's closest to the puck. So, I mean, they have to learn all this stuff, and it's not the most exciting stuff to watch when you go to a practice. I have to promise you that. But they have to run through it, and it's just one of those things where they got to do the reps so that it becomes automatic for the players, and they don't have to think about it.
So that long practice on Monday, of course, happened after the game against the Islanders at UBS Arena.
Right.
where Laviolette had some words. I like that quote. I'll talk about that in a little bit. That we know what quote we're talking about, but I'll talk a little bit more about it in a little bit. But that long practice, to me, it seemed like it was a message to the group of guys, like, get on board with what we're doing here. But was it more emphasis on on understanding the system, or was it, like a bag skate?
I think it was probably half and half. If you recall, they had not practiced the day before, right?
Right.
So they were supposed to be, if you recall, the original schedule was it was going to be Thursday, Friday, back to back. Friday's game got washed out because of the rain in New York, so they pushed Friday's game to Saturday, which was great because it allowed certain people to play. Like Mika, for instance, would not have played originally in the second game. He wouldn't have played both games of the back-to-back. He had played in the Thursday game. And so he was able to play in the Thursday game and the Saturday game. So, a couple of people, were able to play that might not have been played otherwise. In any case, they were off on Sunday. And then so Monday he came back and he worked them hard. But yeah, part of it was sending a message. Part of it was, drilling down on systems. And part of it was just, coming back after a day off. But yeah, it was it was almost a double session practice. They had made a bunch of cuts. They had gotten down to, what was essentially, mostly their final group. They'd cut it down to where they were only going to have one practice in a day, as opposed to having two separate practices for two separate groups. But yeah, it was a long one where they practiced, cut the ice, came back out and practiced some more. And then, a light practice the next day, and then the last two preseason games.
Mm-hmm. And that quote, I'll bring it up now, about the universals. I mean, I loved it.
By the way,
I know you and Vince were had your mind blown when that came out in a preseason game, no less.
Yeah, I think that's a candidate for quote of the year, and we haven't even started the season yet. But yeah,
we call those ice cold takes. That's an ice cold take. I mean, I like Gallant. There were times that that he, to me, he made mistakes here and there, but Laviolette just set the tone right then and there. I was not expecting that in a preseason game. I barely watch preseason, but I mean, I watch it now because I go through withdrawals without hockey. I just love watching the Rangers and hockey in general. So if it's on, it's on. I'll watch it just to, see something. Right. But this year, it just feels like fans are paying way too close attention to it and putting too much of their too much weight on these games.
Yeah,
And
I think that part of it is the new coach, right? I mean, that part of it is whatever. We thought they were going to go places after they made to the Eastern Conference Final in 2022, and then they laid an egg a little bit last year. I mean, it was a hangover season. They weren't as good as they were the year before. And then they fired the coach, or excuse me, they didn't fire the coach. They mutually agreed that they and the coach should separate. So I think there's a curiosity with having a new coach, and I think that's natural to want to pay attention and see if they look any different, because the player personnel is not that different, to be honest with you. I mean, they tinkered with their bottom six or their bottom three, I guess. They brought in guys like Pitlick and Bonino, and so they're, but the top guys are, they got Wheeler as well. I should mention that. But the top guys are the same guys. I mean, you still have Mika, you still have Panarin, you still have Kreider, you still have the kid line. So you want to see if they look different under a new coach. And then I think there was excitement too about the young guys. People were excited about Hoffman and Cooley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think with the fans too, they've gotten the Rangers. It seems like they've gotten into this habit of, over the past few seasons, of not putting in the full 60-minute effort. right? And I know Laviolette said like back checking is a universal. It's not a system, right? Like forechecking, same thing. Blocking shots, same thing. But could it still take a while for the players to get used to performing at that consistency Laviolette expects?
Yeah, definitely. If you think about it, yeah, you only have 3 weeks or so of training camp. You only have 6 preseason games, of which the first game you kind of throw out the window. There was like 5 guys in the lineup, right? It's mostly Hartford guys. So really, you're zeroing in on the last 2 preseason games, or the last 3 if you want. That game on Long Island. Those last 3 games, and really the last 2, the one in New Jersey and the one against the Bruins at the Garden the next night, are where you have essentially your lineup. Lafrenière got the night off in New Jersey. He was back against the Bruins. But that was essentially your lineup in those 2 games. And so you want to see what the lineup looks like, when they're all playing together. And there's work to be done. Clearly, I mean, like I think they looked better defensively. I mean, you have to admit. I mean, I don't even off the top of my head, I don't know what the shots against were, but there weren't many.
The first period was great last night.
Yeah, there weren't many shots against over the 2 games, and the breakdowns were bad to look at. But I think and Laviolette even said as much. For the most part, they played fine. It's just that when they broke down, they paid for it. And so there's stuff that they're going to have to get better at the defensive system, but they've also got better at the offensive system, because now the first focus is on defense, but now you got to generate stuff too, and they didn't do enough of that in the last 2 games, and so they've got a few days of practice. Philip Hedl, as we mentioned, has been out with an injury, and so he wasn't around for those last 2 games. I think that Laviolette would have liked to have seen Hedl with Panarin just to see what that looks like. And he didn't get a chance to see it in the preseason game. But, they've got 4 or 5 days of practice, and then, they'll arrange the lines how they want to, and then they'll be able to work on some stuff. But, people got to relax too. It's not a 1-game season. It's not a 10-game season. It's 82
not football.
Games. No, it's 82 games over 6 months. So don't overreact. Don't panic. Whatever happens in game 1 or game 1 through 5, let's not panic. Okay. It's gonna, there's a long way to go, and you have time to correct stuff that needs correcting.
And I am actually thinking that the Rangers might struggle out of the gate first month, at least just the first month of the season, because of the new coach. Similar to, I know this was before you covered the Rangers, but when the Rangers started with Alain Vigneault, they were really, they struggled a lot because they were also getting used to a new system. His system was like the defense jumping up into plays more. Under John Tortorella, everybody was back. Like everybody was like protect the front of the net, But then once AV came in, then the defenseman started to jump in off the rush and create some offense that way. And I remember that October was, I think they might have only won 3 games, and that included the game where, oh my gosh, Biron retired.
Wow.
After the Sharks scored like 9 goals, and Hurdle had like a hat trick, or 4 goals, I think he had. But yeah, so I'm expecting. Hopefully they prove me wrong, but I'm expecting some growing pains here. But
definitely,
yeah,
for sure, there's going to be growing pains.
Yeah, the effort side of it, though, I think the players that stood out were Othman, Cooley, and to me, it's Kakko. Like Kakko, those 3 guys, those 3 gentlemen played their hearts out.
Yeah,
even just preseason. Like I know Othman's trying to make a statement. He looked really, really good. Like I thought he looked great last preseason. This preseason, he looked really good. Like the first few games, maybe tapered off a little bit the last 2. And then Cooley was very consistent. Like I like the way he fits in on the line with last night it was with Trocheck and Wheeler, and that worked out pretty well. Like I was thinking maybe they try Kreider with Trocheck because that worked out for a time last season, but Cooley looks like he fits in really well. So the Rangers have a tough decision ahead of them. Like Othman was just sent down today on Friday, and they have to get down to 22, right? And they have
Well,
Rod.
they have to get down to 23.
Yeah, but if they want to
That's
accrue
the
cap
limit.
space,
But yes,
you're gonna want to do that to
you're
get.
gonna. I mean, they probably will want to get to 22, but we have to. It depends. We have to see first of all what the status is of Hedel and Tyler Pitlick, right?
Mhm.
Pitlick played the first period in New Jersey on Wednesday night, and then didn't play in the last two periods. He left the game with what they said was an upper body injury. Now, on Thursday, um, Laviolette said that Pitlick had a good morning or a great morning or something like. I don't know what that means. Probably slept in, had a nice big breakfast. I don't know what, but no, I'm assuming that he went on to say that he doesn't think that whatever kept Pitlick out the last two periods of that game is going to be an issue that's going to keep him out any significant time. So he's probably ready to, he'll probably be back at practice Saturday and probably good to go. Hedel, again, as I said, we saw him in the locker room walking around. He looked fine, to the naked eye. And we'll see if he's ready to go on Saturday when they practice. And if he's ready to go on October 12th. But if there's any question about either of those two guys, then it does change things a little bit. As you said, Othman did get sent down. Cooley is still with the team. Their roster is at 24. They need to get to, 23 at least. Although, as we say, for cap purposes and to bank cap space, we expect that they'll carry 22. Ben Harper didn't play in that last preseason game. So I would speculate that probably means that Zach Jones has won the job as the seventh defenseman. I think we all pretty much expect Eric Gustafson's going to be the sixth defenseman. He's going to partner with Schneider on that third pair. And then the question was, are they going to keep Jones or Harper? We always assumed that they would keep Jones. And to be fair, Jones had a really nice preseason. I mean, he was noticeable. I thought he was good in every time I saw him, and he was good in the last preseason game. He was playing on the right side with Gustafsson, and I thought that was telling. Because if you're going to be the seventh defenseman, you have to be able to play the left or the right, right? So instead of just like putting him on the left and Gustafsson on the right, they tried him on the right, I guess, to see if he could be a right side defenseman, even though he's a lefty shot. And I thought he looked fine. I thought he looked really good. So I suspect then that Jones will be the seventh defenseman. I suspect then that they won't carry 8 defensemen, so that Harper would probably go on waivers. If he's not on waivers now, he'll go on waivers and go down to Hartford. And so that would get them down to 23. And so, do we want to get to 22? Well, if Pitlick and Hedel and everybody else are healthy, then there's one more cut to make to get to 22. It would either be Cooley or, Johnny Brodzinski. If either Pitlick or Hedel is, they have some questions about, then you probably carry 23 for opening night and then see what happens when people get fully healthy. So, I think that they're almost there. They're almost there. And at this point, the question is Will Cooley going to be there on October 12th?
Mhm. I like what Gustafsson brought in preseason. I thought he was very sharp. He was solid. That third pair, whoever he was with, it worked out really well. Like last season, I felt like the third pair, like with Schneider and whoever he was paired with, there were times where they'd get stuck in their own end and give up a lot of chances. But for majority of last night, it was pretty smooth, like transitioning out of their zone. The opposition didn't spend too much time in there, and I think a lot of that has to do with Gustafson. Maybe because he's comfortable working with Laviolette, so he knows how the system works on the defensive side. But he looks really, really smooth, and I agree with you. I think Jones looked real good. Um, but that's good that Heedle is like walking around though in like the locker room. Maybe he's not skating with the team yet, but would that rules out like a long-term injury though, right?
Yeah, you would think so, right? I mean, I
Right.
think so. I mean, like generally, they don't want us near injured guys, you know.
Yeah.
And especially where I mean, even if a guy is skating with the team in practice, but he's wearing the red non-contact jersey, they don't want us talking to him. Generally, so especially if a guy's not skating with the team and he's skating on his own before practice, um, we're not supposed to be anywhere near that guy. And then, so for the fact that he was around and he wasn't in the locker, he was going from one of the, like I don't know, the training area or someplace, he just happened to be around as we were walking out of the locker room. So it wasn't, he wasn't there for us to interview, but we did see him and he looks fine, and so it's a good sign. And I expect that he'll be able to practice and ready for October 12th. But until he shows up at practice, I can't promise you that. It's just we've got to wait and see. But yeah, no, so that's they're almost there, and assuming Heedle's good, then you start to think about well, what are the lines going to look like? And I think, the good thing is you could speculate, I could speculate, we probably will come up with different line speculations. And what that suggests is that the coach has options, right? You could play Kreider and Zibanejad together, and you probably would play either Laugh or Kako or Wheeler with them too. Or, he had a look in New Jersey at Zibanejad and Panarin together. So, I mean, you could do that. Some of that had to do with the fact that Heedle wasn't around and he couldn't see Panarin with Heedle. But I think I keep going back to what the lines looked like on the first day. And I think that, here's a guy who had the job and he had 3 months to think about what he wanted his lines to look like on the first day of practice. And so I keep going back to that, which was Kreider, Mika, and Lafrenière, Panarin, Heedle, and he put Blake Wheeler there on the right wing that first day. And then a third line of, I think it was a VC, Goudreau, and Kako on the right side. So
Trocheck.
I'm sorry, VC, Trocheck, and Kako on the right side. I'm sorry, thank you. But so yeah, that's what I keep coming back to. Is that to me seems to be that was what it was on the first day. So I'm assuming that if everybody's healthy, that's kind of where he wants it. Although Kako can play anywhere, and if he moves Kako and swaps him with one of the other two top guys, that would probably make some sense.
Yeah, you said last night basically like Kako's a wild card. You play him anywhere, and he looked real good last night too.
Yeah, he does.
One thing that stood out to me in this preseason was how well he worked with like Trocheck and the checkers, like those aggressive players. I went to the game at the Garden when they played the Islanders, and when he scored like 10 seconds, 15 seconds
right.
in, less than that maybe.
Yeah.
But that line, it was Othman, Trocheck, and Kako. They looked really good that entire game. And also, the other night when they played the Devils, there was a shift where Trocheck, Cooley, and Kako were out there together. That wasn't the line, but
no, that was the first shift where Pitlick had not. Pitlick was the right wing on that line, and so when he didn't come out for second period, they just kind of ran all the right wings.
Yeah.
On that line. So Kako got the first turn, and they scored on that.
Yeah, and they scored. He looked good there. Like Cooley scored on that, and like that little short bit that we got of those three players together, it looked good. So I mean, I don't know if it's like the chemistry between Kako and Trocheck, or if it's just his play style that mixes well with those aggressive players that are good at forechecking. But then again, last night, Kreider, Zibanejad, and Kako, they look really solid.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think with Kako, um, I think why he works with anybody is because he's sound defensively, right? So you could put him on an offensive line where you have guys. If you put him with, let's say you put him with Panarin and Hedel, guys who are not known to be two-way players, they're one-way players, right? Kako can kind of be, because he's a responsible defensive guy and he's strong defensively, he can kind of be the defensive sort of presence on an offensive line. And then at the same time, then the other thing is, the thing that he does well is he works the boards really well. He possesses the puck really well along the boards and in the offensive zone. I mean, like, he can go on these things where he can just hold the puck and just be circling, looking for something to happen. So that'll work with any line. And then he's got a big frame. I mean, he's 6'2" and 206, I think. So he can stand in front of the net too. So he, if you got a guy who can, who can back check, who's good on the boards, who can stand in front of the net, and then he can snap a shot like he did, against the Bruins last night. He can probably play with anybody. And so, I looked at natural stat trick one point, not last season, maybe it was a season before. Remember the year when Kako broke his wrist? And then in that season, he was really the only right wing they had in the top 9. And I kind of looked at all 3 of the lines that year. With Kako on it, the lines were much better than they were without him on it, right? So wherever you put him, he's going to make that line better. If he's on the third line with Hedel and Lafrenière, it's going to make that line better. If he's on the second line with with Strome and Panarin, he's going to make that line better. If you put him on the top line, he's going to make that line better. Based on the construction of their roster. I mean, he's their best right wing. And so wherever he goes, he's going to make a difference on that line. So I think he gives the coach options. Like, he can play Kako on a checking line if he wants, or he can play him on the top line if he wants. He can play him anywhere. And I think that's, when you're a coach, you love having players that you can do that with.
Mm-hmm. If he shoots the puck like that more consistently and trusts his wrist shot, he'll have a lot of goals this year for sure.
Well, the thing about him is he can do that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think he needs ice time. Right? I mean, if he's getting third line ice time, what happens is, and it happens with any young player and any athlete in any sport, is a confidence thing. Like, if he gets a lot of ice time, he'll get a lot of chances. If he gets a lot of chances, he's going to score some goals. If he gets less ice time, he'll get fewer chances. If he gets fewer chances, and then, remember the one stretch last year where he had this stretch where he kept hitting the post and he kept doing all this stuff? You know what I mean? Like, you get a chance, you get a great chance, you think you should score, you hit the post. Now your head's hanging the next time, right? And then all of a sudden your confidence goes a little bit. So he's a guy, I think, that will be better with more ice time, because the more ice time he's going to get, the more chances he's going to get, the more chances he's going to have success.
Certainly there's something there to look at. Like, there's promise there, and he's shown that off over the past couple seasons. Like last season, he may not have had as many points as he could have had. Let's think if he makes some of those chances, if he buries some of those chances that you mentioned, instead of hitting the post, you're looking at maybe a 45, 50 point season, maybe. But
right.
I don't know if the same can be said at this point about Lafrenière. And, going back into that subject, I know he faced a lot of criticism online from fans about, his effort and people questioning about his work ethic and off-season training. I mean, I don't want to believe that, he didn't put any of the work in. I believe he did put in the work, because all athletes do it. And if they didn't, then they would come to camp out of shape, and everybody would know that. But that frustration with Lafrenière, what do you think about it? Like, do you think he should be a more impactful player at this point in his career, even if it's just the preseason?
It is the biggest question on the Rangers roster right now, isn't it?
Yep.
Because you know what you're going to get out of just about everybody else, right? You got maybe the best goalie in the league. You got a defense that's led by a guy who was, is a one-time Norris Trophy winner and was runner-up last year. We know what you're going to get out of Kreider. We know what you're going to get out of Panarin and Zibanejad. And I think, we just discussed at great length what's possible for Kakko. Hedl too, I think, to a lesser degree, because he's produced, and I think the big question with him is going to be, can he play 82 games?
Health. Yeah, health for
will he
Hedl.
stay healthy enough to play? But Lafrenière, I think we do not know what he is just yet. And I know people are mad at him because he's, number one overall, and he was supposed to be the next great player. Was supposed to be, Crosby and then McDavid and then Lafrenière is going to be in that same sentence. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think we've seen enough to think that he's not going to be the next McDavid. But what's his ceiling? Like, what can he be? And I think we don't know that. And I think, look, he was a pretty good third line player. He's a pretty good middle six player, if you will. 2 years ago, that 21-22 season, he had 19 goals. That's not chopped liver, right? But a lot of that came playing right wing with Mika and Kreider. So I'd like to see him get an opportunity, like a real opportunity, go on an extended run with those two guys. Or, if not those two guys, looks like right now, based on the last preseason game, maybe he's going to play with Panarin and maybe Hedl. That last preseason game, that second line was Panarin, Goudreau, and Lafrenière. And the presumption is that Goudreau is a placeholder there for Hedl, and then when Hedl's healthy, he'll step into that line, right? So I'd like to see what Lafrenière is capable of if he gets consistent top six ice time, and the freedom to go out and make plays. I don't know that he's gotten that consistently in his first three seasons. And I know he's fine as a third line player. And if that's what he is, I think he can help the team. But, is there more there? That's the question that we all of us want to know.
I certainly don't think it's time to give up on him yet. Like, there are questions about, what he's provided for the Rangers. Like, but we've seen flashes of brilliance. Like last year, he's able to do these crazy things, put the puck between his legs, score on the backhand, like make something out of nothing, like when it doesn't look like there's anything there. But then there are, to me, far too many times where, you don't notice him out there on a shift or multiple shifts.
Yeah.
And like just getting that consistency, like want to see how Laviolette can help him before I'm ready to write him off. Like, this is just coming from me as a fan. Like, and I know it's preseason, so I'm gonna temper whatever I'm saying, because I know it's just the start of the season. It's
right.
It's not, games don't count. But I understand, like, yeah, you should be trying to make an impression on this new coaching staff. You're the first overall pick to be handed a bridge contract since Nail Yakupov, and we know how he turned out. So I guess fans are expecting a statement from him, and they didn't get it. They were expecting a preseason like Kakko just played, where he's, he may not have had this crazy amount of points, but he certainly looked like in control and like a master of like whatever he was doing out there, Kakko. But Lafrenière, he couldn't say the same thing.
No, but not to get into making excuses for him, because there's been a lot of excuses made for him. Third line ice time. I mean, he's got these two guys ahead of him at left wing. He's got to switch to right wing. The coaches haven't given him a shot at right wing. And I think, that's there, right? Those you can call them excuses if you want, and they may be to some extent, but, they're facts. If you have Kreider and Panarin, at left wing, they're both ahead of Lafrenière at this stage of their careers. So, the whole idea is to switch him to the right side. And I think most of us aren't sure why it's been such a problem for him on the right side. Like, dude, why can't you play right wing? And I think he can play right wing. I just think that coaches who are trying to win today don't have time to develop guys, right? Gallant certainly didn't. I mean, David Quinn, when he was here, was, his job was to try and develop the young guys. Gallant's job was to win and win today and win big. And so Gallant knew what worked. Like, Mika and Kreider worked together. Yes, you could try Mika with Panarin, but you know what? After 3-4 games, I'll go back to Mika and Kreider. I think it's a comfort thing for the coaches more than anything else. I think we need to see Lafrenière get an extended run at right wing and in the top six. Because we need to know what he is. And if what he is a third line left wing who can hit people once in a while and drop the gloves, once in a while, he's fought, and be gritty and stand in front of the net and get you 15 to 20 goals, that'll help your team, right? You just need to know if that's what he is or if he can be capable of being more. And so, again, there's an 82 game season coming up. I would I would like to see him get some run at right wing in the top six. Let's give him a little time. Let's not let him be looking over his shoulder after every shift. Just give him a little time and see if it works out. And then, at some point, you'll have plenty of time at some point to, if it's not working out, to move him down to the third line and play left wing.
Laugh for MVP, says W. Maybe that's Lafrenière. He's listening to us.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, we could just have you talk to him before every game and work your good luck magic. Then it's like confirmed 82 goal season for
yeah.
But no, seriously, we got to track that this year. Like you talked to Kakko. What was it, Kakko, right? The other day.
I spoke to Kakko on Wednesday and wrote him Wednesday for the game that night in New Jersey. And he had an assist, but he had an assist on the Cooley goal. So he wasn't actually playing, with those guys when he had that assist. And then, of course, there was no morning skate on Thursday, and then Kakko scores on Thursday. So I'm claiming that. I'm claiming that, I had something to do with Kakko scoring because I spoke to him.
Gotcha. All right. So we've reached towards the end of the show, and there's one thing that I want to do. I want to start doing a little bit more consistently, and I mentioned it at the beginning, like about the Laviolette quote, and that being what we call an ice cold take. So, Colin, what I want you to do is I want you to make an ice cold take. It's an accurate statement. I have the definition here. This has to get submitted to Webster's dictionary. I have to make a claim here, but it's an accurate statement backed by facts and observations that is solid in nature, similar to a block of ice, i.e. spot on claim. So you can make a prediction.
I'm a little nervous now. You're making me nervous.
I'll go first. I have one. I thought of one during our conversation. So we were talking about how Zach Jones looks pretty good, right? And Schneider got the scratch. Gustafsson looks great. I think we might see multiple instances just within the first month where Schneider is going to be scratched in favor of Zach Jones, and that pair is going to be Jones and Gustafsson, that third pair. I'm not saying every game, but at least a couple.
Well, that's what?
My ice cold take.
I think there's that's a bold take, but I hear what you're saying, and I understand why you're saying it. I don't think Schneider's had a great preseason. The first game, he was like the only one of the top six defensemen in the lineup. against Boston. And I feel
Oh,
like,
that's right.
he probably needed to do a little bit more, maybe felt the pressure to do more in that game. He made a huge mistake. I remember on coming back on where he makes a backhand pass across his own crease, going towards his own goal now, that ends up on the stick of one of the opposition players, and it was a shot on goal, which Jonathan Quick saved. I don't think that Schneider's been great, but again, they're all learning the new systems, and he's got quite a bank of good performances and to sustain them. So I think he'll. I'm not too worried about him, but I think there's merit to what you're saying. Absolutely. I mean, Zach Jones played great in this preseason, and Gustafson's played well, and that pair of Gustafson on the left and Jones on the right looked really good in the last preseason game, and yeah, I mean, I can see Zach Jones getting some games. I mean, I can't imagine him being in the press box. You remember when Libor Hayek was in the press box for, I don't know, 30 games in a row or whatever? I just don't see them doing that with Zach Jones. And so,
Oh no,
yeah,
definitely.
I could see that. I don't know if I'm going to jump on your bandwagon, but I can see where you're coming at.
Yeah, like I agree with you. The Schneider has done a lot in the 2 years he's played with the Rangers. He's looked great at times. It's like no fault of his own, though. Like, you know what I mean? Like Jones is also good, and you just don't want to fall in that same scenario, like you just said about Hyatt going whatever it was, 30 games without playing a game.
Yeah,
Like Jones is, I think, a much higher caliber player than Hayek was. So, you got to give him just a kick at the can, like, a cup of coffee.
you'd
One
like
game
to think so.
here,
Yeah.
here and there. Or if
Kind of
if
like a
Schneider
fourth
is like
option.
feels like wear and tear, you know what I mean? Like give him a night off or something.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe second night of back-to-backs or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, like you do with goaltenders usually.
Yeah. No, so that, I mean, like, it's a solid take. I don't know that I'm not necessarily jumping on the bandwagon with you, but I see where you're coming from with that. As far as me making one of those takes, there's a couple of things, right? We haven't talked about the goalie situation. I don't know that I've liked what I've seen out of Jonathan Quick in the preseason. I'd have to look at the numbers, but I can't imagine they're very impressive. And so I wonder. I do wonder. I mean, the guy's a Hall of Famer, so I don't know what you're going to do. But I do wonder how well he's going to adapt to this new role as a backup goaltender. I mean, the guy's, one of the greatest goalies of his generation. You see, and now he's, you're asking him to play somewhere between, I don't know, 15 and 25 games. And I saw up close, how difficult that was for Alexander Georgiev when he was here his last season. It's not easy at all. It's not easy to do it where you're playing once a week or once every 10 days. And if you have a bad game, you have to sit on that, for a long time before you get back in there. And if you have a great game, you don't get to build on it. You still have to sit on it, for another week or so until you get back in there. That's very, very difficult to do. Now, I think Yaroslav Halak, did a really good job with it last year, but he was a veteran guy. He'd been a number one, and he'd also been a backup, and it kind of evolved over a few years. And I think he handled it really, really well. And I'm curious to see how well Jonathan Quick is going to handle this. He did not have a great year last year in terms of his numbers, as most of us know. And, I don't see how playing fewer games and getting less ice time and getting more inconsistent ice time is going to help any of that. So I'm very curious as to what they're going to do. He may only be starting 17 games, but it's not like you can afford to go 0-17 in those games. I mean, he's going to have to play well when he does play. So, I don't know what the take would be, but I guess the take would be, they're going to have to make a decision at some point. over the course of the season as to whether Quick is going to be their number 2, or if it'll be time for Louis Domingue or Dylan Durant to be the number 2, because I haven't seen it in training camp yet. But again, 82 game season, plenty of time for Quick to sort of wade into it, but I'm not convinced.
We could see, like, it could turn out to be like that scenario where Cam Talbot came up and played for the Rangers in 2013-14 after Biron retired, because he was an experienced goaltender, but then he retired like in the middle of the season. And then also, like, or it could be like Halak last year, where you get off to a rough start and then you just find your mojo and you get into that. But I think it will be a little different for Quick because he's new to the backup role. Halak had plenty of years getting adjusted to that backup role. Like when he played with Boston and the Islanders, it was like that transition to from starter to backup. Because you don't play every night, so you have to stay sharp. But I could see that happening, like with Domingue or Garand coming up for, like, I don't know how long, but there's definitely a concern there with Quick.
Yeah, I mean, I think and again, this is not to, like, I don't know. I mean, we assume that he'll bounce back a little bit. But that's an assumption. I mean, he's gonna have to. We're gonna have to see him in a regular season game. I mean, right now, it's like you could say, "Oh, we didn't play well in front of him," and that but I've heard that a lot about backup goalies. "Oh, we didn't play," and that happens a lot. I mean, you're playing a lot of times a second night in a back-to-back where the team is tired and they're not going to play well, and they're going to need the goalie to kind of lift them up. And I don't know that I don't know how well positioned Quick is to do that.
Interestingly enough, last year when I talked to Johnny Lazarus on another episode like a year ago, and he was saying, like, when you're backup goalies and players tend to play a lot harder, like skate harder back to their own zone because they know it's their backup in there. And that's even more so because the Rangers have Shesterkin as their starter, so they know, like, if that Shesterkin's got them, like, he could bail them out at any point in time. But like when it's the backup goaltender, you're gonna play a little bit harder. So using that excuse that we didn't play hard enough when you're already playing really hard, then I don't know how, I think that excuse runs dry after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to. It's really all about the opportunities, the goals. I mean, I'm not the biggest analytics guy, so I hate the term expected goals. But you got to look at the quality of the chances and make a determination and what is and is not acceptable. Like if he gives up, like against the Devils on Wednesday, he gave up what? It was a 5-2 game. One was an empty netter, so he gave up 4 goals. Three of them
were on the power play.
Yeah, 3 of them were on the power play. So I mean, okay. I mean, I'm not mad at him for that. But yeah, it's going to have to be. He's going to have to be judged differently than Igor will be judged.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, well, that concludes this episode of Ice Cold Takes. Colin, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy writing articles and getting ready for the start of the season, but thanks again for coming on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm glad we were able to work it out. Right now, I just got to run off and just go write a little story about Othman getting sent down, but we're good. No, I'm happy to be here, and I had fun.